going to tell you what happened last Thursday night. And yeah, I know how the title sounds. Buckle up, because this gets worse before it gets better. I'm Michael, 31, married to Skylar for 5 years. We met in college when I was working 2 jobs to pay tuition, and she was in a sorority funded by her parents' money. Her dad owns a commercial real estate company. Her mom does whatever wealthy women do when they don't actually work. I'm from a family where my dad drove trucks and my mom cleaned houses. Skylar thought I was authentic and different from the trust fund boys back then. I thought she saw past the money thing. I was wrong. We bought a house 3 years ago. Well, I bought it, put down the entire down payment, took out the mortgage in my name because her credit was garbage. The house is in both our names, though. Remember that detail. Here's what you need to understand about Skylar's social circle. Her friends Cora, Genesis, and Piper are all married to guys with family money or executive positions. They do brunch, wine tastings, charity galas, where they spend more on dresses than most people's rent. Skylar has spent 5 years desperately trying to keep up with them while married to me, the guy who thinks a nice dinner costs under $40. About 2 years ago, I started noticing things. The way she'd change subjects when her friends asked about vacation plans. How she started mentioning this Marcus guy who worked with her dad's company. Marcus drives a Tesla. Marcus just bought a condo downtown. Marcus is taking a trip to Monaco. I'm not stupid. I knew something was building, so I started watching closer. Pulled our phone records through our shared account. Lots of calls to a number I didn't recognize. Checked credit card statements every month. Started keeping detailed records of our finances. Made copies of everything, every bank statement, every deed, every document. The thing is, I wasn't devastated. I was angry. She thought I was too dumb to notice. And I decided right then that whenever this situation exploded, I was going to be ready. Not surprised. Ready? Last Thursday, she told me to meet her at this Italian restaurant downtown at 7 p.m. Said her friends wanted to do a group dinner, casual. I should come after work. I finished early, got there at 6:45, walked in and told the host I was meeting the Skylar party. He pointed toward the back private dining section behind a partition. I walked toward the back and heard it. The partition wasn't soundproof, just decorative. Skylar's voice carried bright and performative. She was standing, probably doing a toast to my charity case husband, keeping him as like community service, honestly, my good deed for humanity. The whole table erupted laughing. I stood there on the other side, maybe 10 ft away, completely still. Cora's voice came next. Girl, you deserve a Nobel Prize for tolerating that loser. Seriously, 5 years? You're a saint. More laughter. Skylar was giggling. Oh my God, stop. But like he bought me flowers today. Grocery store flowers. Still thinks we're soulmates. It's almost sad. Genesis chimed in. Wait till he finds out about Marcus's penthouse. Have you seen the view? Skylar's voice purred. Why rush it? He's my practice husband, you know. Like those ugly starter homes people buy before their dream house. Exactly that. The whole table cackled. Piper said something about my LinkedIn saying happily married. Called it adorable. I stood there for 30 seconds. My hands were steady. I wasn't shocked because I'd known something was coming, but hearing exactly how little she thought of me crystallized everything. I stepped around the partition with a smile, walked right up to their table. Skylar's face went white. Her friends went silent immediately. I kissed her cheek, kept smiling. Sorry I'm late, darling. Traffic was terrible. I looked at her friends. Cora, Genesis, Piper, good to see you all. I sat down next to Skylar. The rest of dinner was spectacular in the worst way. They tried to recover, overcompensating painfully. Skylar kept touching my arm, playing the loving wife, her hand shaking slightly. I acted completely normal, ordered food, made small talk, laughed at their jokes. Every time Skylar looked at me, I could see her trying to figure out if I'd heard, how much I'd heard. We drove home around 9:30. I didn't say a single word the entire drive. Skylar tried twice to start conversations, asked if I was okay, if I had a good time. I just drove. Let the silence build until it was physically uncomfortable. When we got home, I went straight to my office, locked the door, spent the next hour going through every file I'd been compiling for 2 years. Bank statements showing I'd paid for everything. Mortgage documents showing the house was my financial responsibility. Phone records showing her constant contact with Marcus's number. Credit card statements showing purchases at hotels I'd never been to. Restaurants she'd claimed were work lunches. I'd been recording our conversations for months. One-party consent state, completely legal. I had dozens of conversations where she'd lied about where she was going, who she was with, what she was doing. Around 11 Skylar knocked, asked if we could talk. I told her I was working on something important. She knocked again 20 minutes later. I ignored it. Then I heard her on the phone, panicked, probably calling Cora or Genesis. I pulled up my contact list and started making calls. First to Ryan, my buddy who's now a divorce attorney. Left a message asking him to call me back. Said I needed to discuss asset protection and a potential divorce. Second call to my mom, told her I might need to stay with her and Dad soon. Third call to our mortgage company requesting information about refinancing or removing a co-borrower. Then I logged into our joint bank account. We had a savings account with about $30,000, money I'd saved from my bonuses, my careful budgeting. I transferred $28,000 into my individual checking account, left $2,000. Legally, my money took screenshots of everything. At midnight, Skylar knocked again, crying, asking why I was shutting her out. I opened the door, looked at her with smeared mascara. I'm fine, just working, go to bed. I closed the door in her face. I spent the rest of the night researching Marcus, found his LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Marcus Chen, 33, Director of Operations at her father's company. Pictures of him at company events with Skylar's dad. Recent pictures from a charity gala with Skylar in the background. They were careful. No photos together, but they were at the same events. Friday morning, Skylar left for work. My phone blew up with her texts. Are you mad at me? Please talk to me. Did something happen at dinner? I responded once. All fine. Busy day at work. Talk tonight, Ryan called during lunch. We talked for an hour. I gave him the overview. He explained equitable distribution, how to protect myself financially, what documentation I'd need, told me to keep records of everything. He mentioned if I could prove Skylar's relationship with Marcus was affecting me professionally or financially. If her father's company gave Marcus special treatment because of an inappropriate relationship with the boss's daughter, that could be relevant. Workplace ethics, professional misconduct, nepotism issues. Friday night, Skylar got home nervous. Asked if we could talk. She started with nonsense about feeling disconnected, worried about communication. Then she asked the real question. Did I hear anything at dinner before I arrived? Because Cora made inappropriate jokes sometimes, and she wanted to make sure I wasn't offended. I smiled, told her I got there exactly when I said, asked why she was worried. She stammered about wanting to make sure I wasn't uncomfortable with her friends. I said they seemed lovely, asked if she wanted takeout. She looked confused but relieved. We ate dinner making small talk. She kept watching me like she was waiting for something to explode. After dinner, I said I was tired, going to bed early. She tried to initiate intimacy. I said I had a headache, rolled over. Saturday morning, I went for a run. Came back. Skylar asked if everything was okay. I said everything was great. She said her friends were planning brunch. I said I had errands to run. After she left, I logged into her laptop. We shared passwords, her idea from years ago. I'd never checked before. Didn't need to, but now I did. Found messages from Marcus going back 18 months. Not explicitly incriminating, just inappropriate, too friendly. References to private jokes. Mentions of meeting up. Then I found messages to her friends, group chat, scrolled back through months. Dozens of conversations about Marcus, about how he was so much better than me, about how she was planning her exit strategy, about how she just needed to time it right so she didn't lose the house or split assets before she'd secured Marcus completely. There it was. She'd been planning to divorce me on her timeline when it benefited her. She wanted to keep living in the house I paid for while cultivating Marcus until she was certain he'd commit. Then she'd leave, try to take half of everything, and move into his penthouse. I took screenshots, sent them to my personal email and cloud storage she couldn't access, cleared the browser history. By Thursday, a week from the restaurant, Skylar had relaxed. Started to believe I hadn't heard anything. Started acting normal. That's when I decided it was time to start applying pressure. Thursday evening, I told Skylar I wanted to refinance the house. Said rates had improved. She said okay, whatever I thought was best. I pulled out paperwork, asked her to sign. She signed without reading carefully, trusting me. What she didn't notice was the paperwork wasn't for refinancing. It was for removing her from the mortgage, for transferring sole ownership to me, for refinancing under my name only, releasing her liability, removing her from the deed. I'd arranged for a mobile notary Friday evening, told Skylar we needed the paperwork notarized for refinancing. She'd sign. She'd agree. By Friday night, she would no longer own any part of the house she'd been planning to take from me. And that was just step one. Update 1. Okay, so a bunch of you commented on my last post asking for updates. Some of you thought I was moving too fast. Some said I wasn't moving fast enough. To the guy who said I should have confronted her immediately at the restaurant respectfully, you're wrong. This needed to be surgical, not emotional. Anyway, here's what happened over the past week, and trust me, it gets complicated. Friday evening, the mobile notary showed up at 7:00. I told Skylar she was coming to notarize our refinancing documents. Skylar had gotten home from work around 6 when, changed into comfortable clothes, poured herself wine. She was relaxed, thought the worst was over, thought I'd bought her performance from the week before. The notary arrived, professional woman in her 50s, briefcase full of official-looking papers. I'd prepared everything in advance. The actual quit-claim deed was buried in a stack of legitimate refinancing documents, application forms, disclosure statements, the kind of paperwork that makes your eyes glaze over if you're not paying attention. And Skylar never paid attention to financial paperwork. That was my job. The boring husband stuff she couldn't be bothered with. We sat at the dining room table. The notary went through each document, asked Skylar to initial here, sign there, confirm her identity. Skylar signed everything without reading, sipped her wine between signatures, made small talk with the notary about the weather, about how tedious refinancing was, about how glad she was that I handled all this boring stuff so she didn't have to think about it. I watched her sign away her ownership of our house and felt absolutely nothing except satisfaction. The notary left around 7:30. Skylar asked if we were done with all the financial stuff now. I said yes. Everything was handled. She seemed relieved, said she was going to take a bath, disappeared upstairs with her phone and another glass of wine. I immediately scanned every signed document, uploaded them to 3 separate cloud storage accounts, emailed copies to Ryan, sent copies to my parents. Then I filed the quitclaim deed online with the county recorder office, paid the expedited processing fee. By Monday morning it would be officially recorded. The house would be solely in my name. Skylar had no idea she just made the biggest financial mistake of her life. Saturday morning, I woke up to text messages from Cora. Yeah, Cora, one of the friends from the restaurant disaster. She'd somehow gotten my number, probably from Skylar's phone at some point. The messages started around 8 a.m. We need to talk about Skylar. Something is wrong with her. She's been acting weird since last week. Call me. I deleted the messages. Didn't respond. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Cora calling. I declined. She called again. I declined again. Then she texted that if I didn't call her back, she was coming to our house. Skylar was still asleep upstairs. I called Cora back from my car in the driveway. She answered on the first ring, started immediately with how worried she was about Skylar. How Skylar had been texting their group chat obsessively. How she seemed paranoid. How she kept asking if they remembered exactly what they'd said at dinner. Whether I'd seemed upset. Whether anyone had noticed anything. I played dumb, asked what she was talking about. Said Skylar seemed fine to me. Maybe she was stressed about work. Cora insisted something was wrong. Said Skylar had called her crying Friday night after the notary left, saying she felt like something bad was about to happen, but she didn't know what. That's when Cora said something interesting. She said Skylar had confided in her months ago about having feelings for someone at work. That she'd told Skylar it was just a harmless crush, that lots of married people got crushes, that it didn't mean anything. That she'd encouraged Skylar to enjoy the attention because I was, and I quote, probably too boring to notice anyway. So, Cora had known, had actively encouraged it, had participated in mocking me while knowing Skylar was emotionally cheating at minimum. I asked Cora why she was telling me this now. She got defensive, said she was worried about her friend, said marriages were complicated, said she thought maybe I should pay more attention to my wife, maybe take her on a nice vacation, maybe try to be more exciting. I told Cora I appreciated her concern, but Skylar and I were fine. Cora said she still wanted to come over and check on Skylar. I told her that wasn't necessary. She said she was coming anyway. She'd be there in an hour. I went back inside. Skylar was awake in the kitchen making coffee. Asked who I was talking to. I said, work call. She nodded, distracted. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face changed. Cora had texted her that she was coming over. Skylar asked why Cora was coming. I said I had no idea. Maybe you should ask her. Skylar started texting frantically. Then Cora texted me again. Skylar doesn't want me to come. That's exactly why I'm coming. Something is wrong. An hour later, Cora showed up with Genesis. Both of them marched into my house like they were staging an intervention. Skylar looked mortified. I was in my office, but I could hear everything through the door I'd left slightly open. Cora started immediately, asked Skylar what was going on, why she'd been acting weird, whether everything was okay with me. Skylar tried to brush it off, said everything was fine. Genesis pushed harder, said they were her best friends. They could tell when something was wrong. She needed to talk to them. And then Skylar broke down, started crying, said she thought I knew about Marcus, that she was terrified I'd heard what they said at dinner, that she'd been waiting for me to explode or leave or do something, but I was acting completely normal and it was making her insane, that she didn't know if I actually hadn't heard or if I was planning something. Cora asked if I'd confronted her about anything. Skylar said no. Genesis asked if I'd mentioned divorce. Skylar said no. Then Cora said maybe I really didn't hear anything, that maybe Skylar was overthinking it, that I was probably just oblivious. But Genesis, bless her suspicious mind, said something that made my blood pump with vindication. She said men don't act this calm unless they're either genuinely clueless or planning something nuclear. That in her experience, when a man goes quiet instead of exploding, that's when you should be really worried. Skylar asked what she should do. Cora suggested she talk to me directly. Ask me if I heard anything at dinner. Genesis said absolutely not. That would just draw attention to it if I didn't already know. Better to act normal and wait it out. Then they started discussing Marcus. Skylar said she'd been seeing him for about a year. That it started as friendship, then emotional affair, then physical. That Marcus had told her he loved her. That he wanted her to leave me, but she was scared because of the money situation. Her friends asked what money situation. Skylar explained that everything was in my name. The house, the savings, the cars. That she'd been trying to figure out how to divorce me without losing everything. That she'd been planning to wait until she had some leverage, maybe get a better job with her dad's help, maybe save some money in an account I didn't know about. That Marcus kept pushing her to leave, but she wasn't ready. Cora asked why everything was in my name. Skylar said, because I'd handled all the finances. I'd bought everything. Her credit was bad from college. Genesis said that was a huge problem. That Skylar was financially vulnerable, that she needed to protect herself immediately. They spent the next hour strategizing, talking about Skylar getting a separate bank account, talking about her asking her dad for money, talking about her consulting a divorce attorney, talking about her securing her position before I could do anything. I recorded every word of that conversation on my phone, legal in our state, every admission about the affair, every plan to financially screw me over, every piece of evidence I needed. After Cora and Genesis left, Skylar came to my office, knocked on the door, asked if we could talk. I let her in. She sat down looking nervous, asked if I'd heard them talking. I said I'd heard voices, but was focused on work. She nodded. Then she asked me a direct question. Asked if I was happy in our marriage. I looked right at her and said yes. Said I loved her. Said I thought we were good together. She started crying again. Said she loved me too. Said she was sorry if she'd been distant lately. Said she wanted to be better. I asked her what brought this on. She said her friends had her questioning things. Asked if I thought we should go to marriage counseling. I said if she wanted to, we could. She said maybe that would help. I agreed. She left my office looking relieved, thinking she'd bought herself time, thinking she'd successfully manipulated the situation. Sunday, I spent going through everything I'd recorded and documented, organized it into a timeline, every instance of her lying, every message about Marcus, every conversation about leaving me, every plan to take my money. I had enough to destroy her in a divorce. But I wanted more than just a favorable divorce settlement. I wanted her entire world to collapse the way mine had when I'd heard her mock me as her charity case husband. Monday morning, I called the main office of her father's company, asked to speak to someone in HR, got transferred to the director of human resources, introduced myself, said I had a concern about potential ethical violations involving 2 employees and wanted to report it confidentially. The HR director asked me to elaborate. I explained that I had evidence of a personal relationship between Marcus Chen, a director-level employee, and Skylar, the owner's daughter. That this relationship appeared to have been ongoing for approximately a year. That I was concerned this might represent a conflict of interest or violation of the company's ethics policy. The HR director was silent for a moment, then asked how I had this information. I said I was Skylar's husband, that I discovered communications suggesting an inappropriate workplace relationship, that I believe the company should be aware in case this was affecting business decisions or creating liability issues. She asked if I was planning legal action. I said I was considering my options, but wanted to do the right thing by reporting this to the appropriate parties first. She said she would look into it. Asked if I could provide documentation. I said I could. I sent her screenshots of the messages between Skylar and Marcus. Carefully selected ones that were professional enough not to explicitly prove an affair, but inappropriate enough to raise serious questions. Messages about meeting for lunch that seemed too frequent. Messages with personal comments that crossed professional boundaries. Messages referring to private jokes and shared secrets. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus got called into HR. I know this because Skylar came home that evening in a complete panic. Apparently, Marcus had texted her that HR had questioned him about their relationship, that someone had reported them, that he'd denied everything, but they were investigating. Skylar asked me if I'd said anything to anyone about her and Marcus. I looked confused, asked what she was talking about. She said, "Never mind." Asked if I'd mentioned her friendship with Marcus to anyone. I said, "No, why would I?" She said someone at her dad's company was asking questions, and it was making her paranoid. I suggested maybe someone at work had noticed they were friendly and made assumptions. Skylar looked sick, said this could ruin everything. I asked what would be ruined. She backpedaled, said it could make work awkward. I said if she and Marcus were just friends, then they had nothing to worry about. Wednesday, Skylar's dad called her. I heard her side of the conversation from the bedroom while she was downstairs. He was asking about Marcus, asking if there was anything going on, asking if he needed to be concerned about his daughter's judgment. Skylar was crying, denying everything, saying it was all misunderstanding, saying whoever reported this was lying. Her dad apparently didn't believe her. Said he was going to have to handle this officially. That if there was something happening between his daughter and one of his employees, it was a massive liability for the company, that Marcus could claim favoritism, that other employees could sue for discrimination, that this was exactly the kind of thing that destroyed family businesses. Thursday morning, Skylar got a call from her mom. Her parents wanted to meet with her. Family meeting at their house Friday evening. Skylar spent all day Thursday alternating between panic and anger. Kept asking me if I thought her dad was overreacting. I said I didn't know the situation well enough to judge. That night, Skylar tried to initiate a serious conversation. Sat me down, said she needed to be honest with me about something. My pulse was steady. This was it, the confession I'd been waiting for. She said she'd made a mistake, that she'd gotten too close to someone at work, that it was emotional, not physical, that she'd developed feelings she shouldn't have, that she was sorry, that it was over now because of the work situation, that she wanted to focus on our marriage. I let her finish. Then I asked who. She said Marcus. I acted surprised. Asked how long. She said a few months. I asked if anything physical happened. She said no, just emotional closeness. I asked if she loved him. She said she'd thought she did, but now she realized it was just infatuation because she'd been feeling disconnected from me. Every word was a lie. Every word was exactly what I'd expected. I told her I appreciated her honesty, that I was hurt, but I understood that maybe counseling could help us. She looked relieved, hugged me, said she loved me, said she'd never let anything like this happen again. Friday evening came. Skylar left for her parents' house at 6. I stayed home, told her I'd give her privacy to talk to her family. She was grateful. While she was gone, I checked the county recorder website. The quitclaim deed had been officially processed. The house was legally mine. Skylar's name was completely removed from the property. She had no idea that while she was at her parents' house explaining her affair, she'd already lost the house she thought she'd get half of in the divorce. My phone rang around 8, Skylar's mom asking if I could come to their house. They wanted to talk to me. I said, of course. I drove to the massive house in the expensive suburb where Skylar grew up. Her parents answered the door looking grim. Skylar was in the living room, eyes red from crying. Her dad asked me to sit. Then he apologized to me, said he'd just learned about what had been happening between Skylar and Marcus, that it was unacceptable, that he was humiliated, that he'd already terminated Marcus's employment effective immediately, that Marcus would not be getting a reference, that he'd made it clear to Marcus that if he contacted Skylar again, there would be legal consequences. Skylar was sobbing. Her mom was trying to comfort her while also looking disappointed. Her dad kept apologizing to me for his daughter's behavior. I sat there listening. When her dad finished, I said I appreciated him telling me that Skylar and I would work through this, that I believed people made mistakes. Her dad looked relieved, said I was being very gracious, that I was a better man than his daughter deserved. We left an hour later. Skylar could barely speak on the drive home. When we got back, she went straight upstairs. I heard her on the phone immediately calling Marcus. He wasn't answering. She left voicemails crying, apologizing, saying they'd figure it out. I went to my office and started planning phase 2. Marcus had lost his job. Skylar had lost Marcus. Her parents knew about the affair. Her father was ashamed of her. She thought she'd confessed and been forgiven by me. She still had no idea I'd heard what she said at that restaurant. She still had no idea she didn't own our house anymore. She still had no idea I'd recorded her planning to financially destroy me. And I was just getting started. Update 2. All right. You guys have been blowing up my DMs asking what happened after the meeting at her parents' house. Some of you called me cold-blooded. One person said I was playing 4D chess while she's playing checkers. Honestly, that's exactly what this is. So here's where things got really interesting. And yeah, it's messy. The weekend after Skylar's dad fired Marcus was rough. Skylar spent most of Saturday in bed crying, kept trying to call Marcus. He'd answer sometimes, but their conversations were short. I could hear her from downstairs begging him not to give up on them, saying they'd figure something out, saying her dad was overreacting. Sunday morning, she came downstairs looking determined, said she wanted to start marriage counseling immediately, said she'd already looked up therapists and found one who had availability this week. I said, okay. She seemed surprised I agreed so easily. Probably thought I'd resist or make it difficult. The therapist she picked was this woman named Dr. Partition, who specialized in infidelity recovery. Our first appointment was Tuesday evening. We sat in her office, Skylar looking remorseful, me looking like the patient, understanding husband trying to save his marriage. Dr. Partition asked Skylar to explain what had happened. Skylar gave her sanitized version, said she'd developed an emotional connection with a coworker, that it never got physical, that she'd been feeling disconnected from me and made a mistake, that the relationship was over now, and she wanted to rebuild our marriage. Dr. Patterson asked me how I felt about this. I said I was hurt but willing to work through it, that I loved my wife, that I believed people deserved second chances. Skylar grabbed my hand and started crying. Then Dr. Patterson asked some questions that clearly made Skylar uncomfortable. Asked about the timeline, asked what specifically had made her feel disconnected from me, asked if there were other issues in our marriage beyond this affair. Skylar tried to deflect, said it was complicated, said she'd been immature. Dr. Patterson pushed, asked if I'd done anything that contributed to her feeling disconnected. Skylar hesitated. Then she said sometimes she felt like we were from different worlds, that my background was so different from hers, that she sometimes felt embarrassed by our lifestyle compared to her friends. There it was, the truth. She'd never had the guts to say directly to me. She was embarrassed by me, by my working-class family, by the fact that I didn't come from money, by the fact that I couldn't give her the lifestyle her trust fund friends had. Dr. Patterson asked me how I felt hearing that. I said it was painful, but I appreciated her honesty, that I couldn't change where I came from, but I'd always worked hard to provide for us. Skylar said she knew that, said she was being shallow and horrible, said that's why she needed therapy. We left that session with homework. We were supposed to have daily check-ins about our feelings. Skylar was supposed to journal about why she'd been attracted to Marcus and what was missing in our marriage. I was supposed to think about ways I could help her feel more secure. The whole thing was theater, but it served my purposes. It made me look reasonable and forgiving to any outside observers, and it was buying me time to move my remaining chess pieces into position. Wednesday morning, I got a call from Ryan, the divorce attorney. He'd reviewed everything I'd sent him, the recordings, the messages, the financial documents. He said I had one of the strongest cases he'd seen for a fault-based divorce, that with the evidence of adultery and her admitted plans to financially manipulate me, I could likely keep most of our marital assets. But he said there was something I needed to know, the quitclaim deed. I'd had Skylar sign, the one removing her from the house ownership. He'd consulted with a colleague who specialized in real estate law. There was a possibility Skylar could challenge it in court if she could prove she'd been deceived about what she was signing. That judges sometimes set aside quitclaim deeds if one spouse can demonstrate they didn't understand what they were signing. I asked what would make it stick. He said if I could prove she'd had opportunity to read the documents, that she'd signed voluntarily, that she'd had access to legal counsel if she'd wanted it. He said the fact that we'd had a notary present helped, but the best protection would be if the deed stayed uncontested for a while before the divorce proceedings started. If she lived in the house for months after signing without questioning it, that would strengthen the argument that she'd knowingly transferred ownership. So, I needed to delay the actual divorce filing. Keep playing happy husband trying to work things out. Let enough time pass that the deed became unassailable. Meanwhile, I could keep gathering evidence and tightening the financial screws. Thursday evening, Skylar came home from work upset. Apparently word had gotten around her social circle about Marcus getting fired. Her friends were asking questions. Cora had called her demanding to know the full story. Skylar had tried to downplay it, but Cora wasn't buying it. Then Skylar told me something that made my whole week. She said Cora was mad at her. That Cora was saying Skylar had put them all at risk with her behavior at the restaurant dinner. That if I had heard what they'd said and was planning something, it could affect all of them. That Cora had a reputation to protect and didn't want to be associated with someone having a tacky affair with a coworker. The rats were turning on each other. Perfect. Friday afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Marcus. Somehow he'd gotten my cell number. The message said he wanted to talk to me man to man. That there were things I should know. That Skylar wasn't being honest with me about their relationship. I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, he called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message saying he understood I was angry, but that he and Skylar were in love. That their relationship wasn't some casual thing. That she'd been planning to leave me for months. That I deserved to know the truth. I saved the voicemail, added it to my evidence folder. Then I blocked his number. That evening, I told Skylar that Marcus had contacted me. Her face went white, asked what he'd said. I told her he'd left a voicemail saying we needed to talk. She asked if I'd listened to it. I said no. I'd deleted it without listening. Didn't want to hear whatever excuses he had. She looked relieved, then asked if I'd blocked him. I said yes. She hugged me. Said she was so sorry. Said Marcus was clearly trying to cause problems. Said she'd handle it. She called Marcus immediately from our bedroom. I could hear her through the door. She was furious, telling him he needed to stop contacting me, that he was making everything worse, that they were over, that he needed to accept it and move on. He was arguing back, saying she'd promised him things, that she couldn't just cut him off, that he'd left his job for her. Skylar pointed out that he'd been fired. He hadn't left. Marcus said it was semantics, that her father had only fired him because of her, that they were supposed to be together. Skylar said they couldn't be together now. Everything was ruined. He needed to let it go. The call ended badly. Skylar came out of the bedroom looking shaken. I pretended I hadn't heard anything. Saturday morning, Skylar's mom called. Wanted to take Skylar to lunch. Just the two of them. Mother-daughter time. Skylar left around 11. While she was gone, I did something I'd been planning for a week. I went to our bank and closed our joint checking account. Transferred all remaining funds to my individual account. Opened a new checking account in only my name. Updated all the automatic bill payments to come from the new account. Our joint account had about $8,000 in it. Money from both our paychecks. Legally, I had every right to withdraw it. We weren't divorced yet, but by closing the joint account and moving everything to an individual account, I was cutting off her easy access to our liquid funds. She still had her own paycheck being direct deposited to her individual account. But all our shared money, all the money that paid our mortgage and utilities and insurance, that was now under my sole control. When Skylar got home from lunch with her mom, she looked tense, asked if we could talk. We sat in the living,